has any questions in general, or anything about socioeconomic issues?
Well, I'd like to make an observation myself. One of the things that I noticed, and one of the things that I really liked about the book is that you managed to avoid info dumping the audience a lot, which is very much appreciated. But did that take a lot of effort? Did you do a lot of rewrites? Did you find yourself falling into that trap at all?
Absolutely. The first draft of the book was huge info dumps, every 20 pages or so. When you're writing a first draft, a lot of times you'll think, oh yeah, that, and you'll just figure out a way to get a character to suddenly make a speech, just so you can get it down on paper. And it's hard sometimes to remember to go back and pull all that out and spread it around a little bit. But when you go back and reread it, you try and, you get some beta readers to go in there and take a look at it for you, and you try and be objective, it jumps out at you, I think. But it definitely took a few rewrites to clean that up and make it feel a little bit more natural.
There's a passage in the Electric Church where you lampshade it very neatly. And the protagonist, Avery, comes out with some explanation of the tech, and the techie turns and says, "Are you telling me?"
I'm a big believer, if you can't avoid something like that, you might as well lampshade it. You might as well hang a big red nose on it and say, look what I'm doing. Isn't this great? Anybody else? Yes.
First off, it's an honor that the Duchess is here tonight. To be honest, I was hoping, I said, maybe he'll bring her because he writes about you. Big fan.
Thank you.
Agreed with your wife. The new book, Eternal Prison, was my favorite.
Oh, thank you.
The Vegas, Venice, and Chingara prison stuff, I thought, really stood out. I've always loved the picture you painted of what was left of New York. Supposedly, Terminal State's going to end Avery Cates.
No, there's one more book after.
There will be one more after that.
There'll be another book in 2011.
Is that just because you feel with that book you'll have said everything you can say with the Avery Cates character? Or are you just tired of living in that world? Because it's a brutal existence.
It is, and, as the writer, you get to a point where how many times can I break Avery's nose? You almost start to feel sorry for him, because I do feel it's odd as the creator. I feel like I have this moral duty. He's a terrible person, but he's the hero or protagonist of the book, and so I actually have this weird feeling that I have to punish him continuously throughout the book, sort of to make up for the fact that he's charming. At least I think he's charming. Maybe not everybody thinks he is, but I think he's charming and he's funny, and you want to hear him. You want to hear his voice telling his adventures, but it's wrong because he's a terrible guy. He breaks people's noses because they annoy him, and he kills people for money, and he's always thinking only about his own survival, really. So it is a little bit wearying after a while to constantly have a character that's that bad going through such violent turns. That said, there's plenty more to write about, I think, in this universe, and I may come back to it at some point. Book 5 just sort of is going to be a natural end of this particular arc.
Great.
And it's going to bring some closure to what Avery's been going through all these books, and tie up some of the mysteries and loose ends that have been sort of dangling out there since before.
Since you created this universe, this is your future. On the one hand, you have absolutely brilliant technology, the nanotechnology from the digital play, which is just, as high as you can imagine. But at the same time, humanity is at this absolute base of brutality and civilization just non-existent, but at the same time, you have the unified forces, but it's just, there's no middle ground.
Right. I honestly think that's just an extrapolation of what exists right now. In this world today, you have people who have access to the most amazing technology that's at our fingertips, but there are also people in this world who can't even feed themselves, who have no shelter, who have nothing. So this is just that turned up to 11. This is just, imagine if nothing ever changes and things just continue to diverge that way for decades and decades and decades. What would you have? You'd have this weird world where a small number of people are almost godlike with their technology, and the mass of humanity isn't. Not that they're ignorant of the technology; they know it's there, they know what it is. They just don't have access to it. So I think it felt very natural to do it that way.
Great.
And you did give Avery some rudimentary scruples.
Yes.
Allowing last words and not shooting people in the back. I mean, it's not much, but in this world,
I'm not sure it's the most. I don't know if I'm the first one to come up with a character like this, but he clings to codes like that because he imagines that it makes up for what he does. At least that's my conception of the characters. You know, he's almost. It's almost like a psychological disorder with him. Like as long as it's almost like somebody who has a repetitive disorder. As long as he clings to those codes, as long as he gives people their last words, or he doesn't never renege on a deal or something like that, then what he does is okay. He's not a terrible person.
Sort of his the ragged shreds of his conscience.
Exactly. Yeah.
I keep trying to get him to give Avery a girlfriend. He keeps trying to explain to me that Avery is a killer and doesn't have time for women.
Well, I certainly would not envy any girlfriend you have.
I always, like in movies, it always rings false to me when people are dodging bullets and crawling through sewers and fighting for their lives, and yet they still have time for a passionate, love affair on the side. I mean, obviously it can be done, but it just felt kind of like it wouldn't be right for this.
Knowing that the electric church has been optioned, is that a fear that they will try to give it a warm, fuzzy feeling?
First of all, I have no fears at all because I'm not a filmmaker. They can do whatever. Honestly, they can do whatever they want with it. I don't have any pretensions to making movies. I sold the rights. It's theirs. On the other hand, if they did that, that would be horrible. And I can only hope that they know better. When I met with the producer who wanted to option it, I think they got it. I think they understood what they were trying to do. Now, who knows from that step A to step Z, where there's actually, if there is ever a film actually made, who knows who gets involved, and who knows if they're going to have 25 script writers working on it. Joel Silver gets involved, and then they cast Keanu Reeves, and it. Or the other route, we end up on the Sci-Fi Network. Biggest
They signed Keanu Reeves, and at the last minute he drops out, so they have to replace him with Angelina Jolie.
I don't know. I see him more as a Bruce Willis role.
I could see Bruce Willis. He's a little too old. Just a tick too old, but he could still pull it off. And certainly, if they said to me, "Hey, we cast Bruce Willis," I'd be like, "Okay, that's fine. Good enough."
Do you have anybody in mind?
The person I've always thought, strangely enough, would be Jason Statham. He's in the Crank movies, Death Race 2000 that they just remade. I just think he's the right physical type. He's actually in too good a shape, really, for the character. You'd have to dough up a little bit. But he's sort of you have to be like me. But just his face and his presence on screen, I think he'd personally be right.